shining as a self in all beings. We begin today's satsang with the chanting of the prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by chanting of Muktakatrayam.
Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarva Vangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namah Satvikam Shivam. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Namo Ramana. Ekam aksharam hridi nirantaram bhasate swayam likhyate katham hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahma matram hyaham aham iti sakshat atmarupena bhati hridi vishamanasa swam chinvata majjatava pavana chalana rodhat atmanishto bhavatvam deham mrinmayavat jadatmakamaham buddhirna tasyastato naham tattadabhava shukti samaye siddhatma sadbhavatah koham bhavayuta kuto varadhiya drishtatmanishtatmanam soham spurtitaya arunachala shivaha purno vibhati swayam soham spurtitaya arunachala shivaha purno vibhati swayam. Namo Ramana. We continue with the chanting of Upadesha Saram by Uma Shripati.
Namo Ramana. Idamaham pada bhikkyamanvaham ahamilinake pyalaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranabitama nahame kasat tajjadam yasat satvabhasika chitva vetara sattaya hi chet chittaya yaham isha jivayo
स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम् वेशहानत स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनम् स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णचित्सुखम् बन्धमुख्यतीतं परं सुखम् विन्दति जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकम् निजविभानकम् महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम्। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. We now have Ramananjali songs. The first two by Radha along with Ujjwal, followed by Pratibha Sundaresh's rendering.
Namo Ramana to all. Today we have selected a song written by Meenakshi Sundaram, and the music is given by Srimati Sulochana Natarajan, our dear Mami. And as always, Mami says, it is the 3 letters name, Ramana, which is not to be forgotten, is the essence of this song. It is in the Ragam Kanahara Priya, set to Aditalam. ரமண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் ரமணா 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 ரமண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் ரமணா 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 அருண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலா அருண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலா ரமண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் ரமணா 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 ரமண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் ரமணா 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 மோன நிலையே ரமணேஸ்வர மோன நிலையே ரமணேஸ்வர ஞான திரளே அருணேஸ்வர ஞான திரளே அருணேஸ்வர மோன நிலையே ரமணேஸ்வர மோன நிலையே ரமணேஸ்வர ஞான திரளே அருணேஸ்வர ஞான திரளே அருணேஸ்வர ரமண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் ரமணா 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 ரமண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் ரமணா 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 அருண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலா அருண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலா ரமண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் ரமணா 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 அருண நாமத்தை மறந்திட வேண்டாம் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலா மரகதமணியே ரமணேஸ்வரா மரகதமணியே ரமணேஸ்வரா சாம்ப சதா சிவ அருணேஸ்வரா சாம்ப சதா சிவ அருணேஸ்வரா மரகதமணியே ரமணேஸ்வரா மரகதமணியே ரமணேஸ்வரா சாம்ப சதா சிவ அருணேஸ்வரா சாம்ப சதா சிவ அருணேஸ்வரா ரமணா 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 Ramana, 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 Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. This is a Hindi translation of the 8th verse of Bhagwan's composition, Navamanimalai, the necklet of 9 gems that extol the glory of Arunachala. Bhagwan makes reference to his birthplace Tiruchuli, seat of Bhuminatheshwara, born to his parents Mother Alagammal and Father Sundramayar. He says that Arunachala Shiva rescued me from the worldly life and gave me his own state of bliss so that his own being as awareness might shine forth and his power might flourish. As I was watching the story of birth of Ramana music yesterday, Bhagwan reminded me of how he picked us up from nowhere, ever caught in the ups and downs of this worldly life, and is continuously turning us towards him. Anytime when we think that we have fallen off the wagon and feel doomed, ever sweetly and gently, he reminds us of his presence and puts us back onto his path of self-inquiry and surrender. Further, giving us the satisfaction of having put the effort. Undoubtedly, Arunachala Ramana has come into our lives as our father and mother to see us through, and by that, his glory will shine forever. भूमिनाथ की पावन नगरी तिरुचुली में जन्म हुआ, तिरुचुली में जन्म हुआ। भूमिनाथ की पावन नगरी तिरुचुली में जन्म हुआ, तिरुचुली में जन्म हुआ। पिता सुंदरम माता अड़गू को शिवजी का ये मिलाद हुआ। पिता सुंदरम माता अड़गू को शिवजी का ये मिलाद हुआ। भूमिनाथ की पावन नगरी तिरुचुली में जन्म हुआ, तिरुचुली में जन्म हुआ। जग जंजाले से मुझे छुड़ाया, दे दिया अवस्थानंद के। जग जंजाले से मुझे छुड़ाया, दे दिया अवस्थानंद के। अरुणाचल रूप धारण करके प्रकट हुई माया शिव की। अरुणाचल रूप धारण करके प्रकट हुई माया शिव की, प्रकट हुई माया शिव की। भूमिनाथ की पावन नगरी तिरुचुली में जन्म हुआ, तिरुचुली में जन्म हुआ। शिव शक्ति शिव तत्व जगानी धरती पे मुझको लाया। शिव शक्ति शिव तत्व जगानी धरती पे मुझको लाया। जय अरुणाचल जय शिव शंकर, अरुणाचलम शिव की छाया। जय अरुणाचल जय शिव शंकर, अरुणाचलम शिव की छाया। अरुणाचलम शिव की छाया। जय अरुणाचल जय शिव शंकर, जय अरुणाचल जय शिव शंकर। जय अरुणाचल जय शिव शंकर, जय अरुणाचल जय शिव शंकर। जय अरुणाचल जय शिव शंकर। नमो नमः।
Namo Ramana. The next song will be by Savitri Krishnan and Jai Shri Ram Krishnan, and this will be followed by Ramananjali offering from Revathi Shankar.
ಬಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ ಬಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಬಂದೆನೋ ತಾಯಿ ಮುನಿಯೊಲು ಮಗುವು ತಾವುಳಿಯುವುದೇನೋ ಪಶುಪತಿಯೇ ಮುನಿಯಲು ಪಶು ನರಳದೇನು ತಾಯಿ ಮುನಿಯಲು ಮಗುವು ತಾವುಳಿಯುವುದೇನು ಪಶುಪತಿಯೇ ಮುನಿಯಲು ಪಶು ನರಳದೇನು ವಿಧಿಯದುರು ನಿಂತ ಮಾನವನ ಬಗೆಯೇನು ವಿಧಿಯದುರು ನಿಂತ ಮಾನವನ ಬಗೆಯೇನು ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆ ತಪ್ಪಿದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಗತಿಯೇನು ನಿನ್ನ ಕೃಪೆ ತಪ್ಪಿದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಗತಿಯೇನು ಬಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಹುಣ್ಣಿಮೆಯ ಚಂದಿರನ ಕಣ್ಣೆದುರು ತರುವ ನಿನ್ನ ಮುಖ ಮಂಡಲದಿ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಸೆಳೆವ ಹುಣ್ಣಿಮೆಯ ಚಂದಿರನ ಕಣ್ಣೆದುರು ತರುವ ನಿನ್ನ ಮುಖ ಮಂಡಲದಿ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಸೆಳೆವ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ನೇತ್ರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿರೆ ಕರುಣೆ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ನೇತ್ರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿರೆ ಕರುಣೆ ಹೊಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿದೆ ನಿನ್ನಂತರಾಳದ ಮಹಿಮೆ ಹೊಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿದೆ ನಿನ್ನಂತರಾಳದ ಮಹಿಮೆ ಬಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ ಬಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಬಂದೆನೋ ಓಂ ನಮೋ ಭಗವತೆ ಶ್ರೀರಾಮ.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the 23rd verse of Saddarshanam. Na vakti dehohamiti prasuptau na kopi na bhuvamiti pravakti yatrodite sarvamudeti tasya dhiyahamah shodhaya janmadesham. The body does not say I. No one says I did not exist in deep sleep. When the I rises, all rise. Find out with keen intellect whence this I. Bhagavan says the body is jada. It cannot say I am, I exist. In deep sleep, although there is no recognition with anything, we don't say I did not exist. But everything rises when this I rises. So our attention should be on the I to know ourselves. When I go in search of this, from where this I arises, then we find the self, we find ourselves. I'll be presenting a Kannada translation of Sadhguru Swami's song, Kannada translation by R.N. Jayagopal, music by Appal Raj. ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ಗುರುಪಾದ ಕಮಲಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಿಸೋಣ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ಗುರುಪಾದ ಕಮಲಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಿಸೋಣ ಹೃದಯದ ಗುಹೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರೋಣ ಗುರು ಕರುಣೆಯ ಹೊಳೆಯಲಿ ತೇಲೋಣ ಹೃದಯದ ಗುಹೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರೋಣ ಗುರು ಕರುಣೆಯ ಹೊಳೆಯಲಿ ತೇಲೋಣ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ಗುರುಪಾದ ಕಮಲಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಿಸೋಣ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ಆತ್ಮಶೋಧನೆಯಲಿ ಅಳಿಯಲಿ ಅಹಂಕಾರ ಆನಂದದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ಮುಳುಗಿ ಮರೆಯಲಿ ಮಮಕಾರ ಜಗವು ಕಾಲವು ವ್ಯೋಮಗಳಿಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಎಂಬುದು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತರಂಗದ ಕಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಕಾಂಬುದು ಶಿವನೊಬ್ಬನೇ ಎಲ್ಲ ಶಿವನೊಬ್ಬನೇ ಎಲ್ಲ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ಗುರುಪಾದ ಕಮಲಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಿಸೋಣ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ಒಳಿತು ಕೆಡುಕು ಬಡತನ ಸಿರಿತನ ಯಶಸ್ಸು ಅಪಯಶವು ರಮಣನ ಒಲವಿಂದ ಅರ್ಪಣಗೈದವು ತಂದೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮಯ ಜೀವನ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅವನದಾಗಿರೆ ನಮದೆನ್ನುವುದೇಕೆ ಮೂಢಮನ ನಮದೆನ್ನುವುದೇಕೆ ಮೂಢಮನ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ಗುರುಪಾದ ಕಮಲಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಿಸೋಣ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ತನುಮನ ಆತ್ಮಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಭಗವಾನಿಗೆ ಸಮರ್ಪಣ ಅವನ ಚರಣಯುಗಳೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಶಿರಸಿಗೆ ಭೂಷಣ ಗಳಿಸುವುದೇನು ತೊರೆಯುವುದೇನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಅವನದೇ ತಾನೇ ಇಷ್ಟ ಅನಿಷ್ಟ ಎಂಬುದೆಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಶಿವಮಯ ತಾನೇ ಎಲ್ಲ ಶಿವಮಯ ತಾನೇ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ಗುರುಪಾದ ಕಮಲಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಿಸೋಣ ಹೃದಯದ ಗುಹೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರೋಣ ಗುರು ಕರುಣೆಯ ಹೊಳೆಯಲಿ ತೇಲೋಣ ಭಗವಾನ್ ರಮಣನ ಭಜಿಸೋಣ ನಮೋ ರಮಣ
Namo Ramana. We now have the reading and the sharing by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this the book reading segment of our satsang, we continue to read from Fresh Discoveries, Western Seekers on Sri Ramana Maharshi. Am I audible? We have come up to the account of Mercedes D. Costa. Here lies the heart. She describes her travel and her entering the ashram and meeting her friend Guy Hale, who takes her towards the resting place in the meditation hall. And it is from there that we start the reading today. He, referring to Guy Hale, he rose from where he was sitting against the wall and came toward me, taking my hand and leading me back to a place beside him against the wall. He did not at first speak to me, allowing me to pull myself together. I was able to look around the hall, but my gaze was drawn to Bhagavan. There is an echo, so I'll just take this off. He did not at first speak to me, allowing me. I was able to look around the hall, but my gaze was drawn to Bhagavan, who was sitting absolutely straight in the Buddha posture, looking directly in front of him. His eyes did not blink or in any way move. Because they seemed so full of light, I had the impression that the eyes were grey. I learned later that they were brown, although there have been various opinions as to the color of his eyes. His body was naked except for a loincloth. I discovered soon after that this loincloth and his staff were absolutely his only possessions. His body seemed firm and as if tanned by the sun, although I found that the only exercise he ever took was a 20-minute walk every afternoon at 5 o'clock when he walked down the hill and sometimes greeted yogis who came to prostrate themselves at his feet. The rest of the time, day and night, and for over half a century, he had been sitting on his couch. He was a strict vegetarian, but he only ate what was placed before him, and he never expressed a desire for any kind of food. As he sat there, he seemed like a statue, and yet something extraordinary emanated from him. I had a feeling that on some invisible level, I was receiving spiritual shocks from him, although his gaze was not directed toward me. He did not seem to be looking at anything, and yet I could see that he could see and was conscious of the whole world. Bhagavan is in Samadhi, Guy Hale said. Samadhi is a very difficult state to explain. In fact, I do not think anyone has ever explained it. Doctors have tried to analyze it from a medical and physical point of view and have failed. I have heard it described as a state of spiritual ecstasy in which consciousness leaves the body. But this is not the whole phenomenon, as the breath stops and so does the beating of the heart. But it does not form of trance, as in the trance state, both breath and heartbeat continue. It is claimed that Samadhi is a state attained only by highly enlightened people people who have reached spiritual illumination. It is a state where the spirit temporarily leaves the body and goes into one of bliss. All the enlightened ones who have attained samadhi describe it as bliss. In the last century, the great saint Sri Ramakrishna often went into samadhi. The Maharshi would go into it for hours at a time and often for days. When I arrived at the ashram, he had already been in samadhi for 7 hours. I looked around, squatting on the floor or sitting in the Buddha posture or lying prostrate face down. A number of Indians prayed, some of them reciting their mantras loud. Several small monkeys came into the hall and approached Bhagavan. They climbed onto his couch and broke the stillness with their gay chatter. He loved animals, and any kind was respected and welcomed by him in the ashram. They were treated as the equals of humans and always addressed by their names. Sick animals were brought to Bhagavan and kept by him on his couch or on the floor beside him until they were well. Many animals had died in his arms. When I was there, he had a much beloved cow who wandered in and out of the hall and often lay down beside him and licked his hand. He loved to tell stories about the goodness of animals. He was very fond too of snakes, and many came into the hall to pay their respects. He always had a little milk for them. It was remarkable that none of the animals ever fought or attacked each other. After I had been sitting several hours in the hall, listening to the mantras of the Indians and lost in a sort of inner world, Guy had suggested that I go and sit near the Maharishi. He said, "You can never tell when Bhagavan will come out of samadhi. When he does, I am sure he'll be pleased to see you, and it will be beneficial for you at this moment to be sitting near him." I moved near Bhagavan, sitting at his feet and facing him. Guy was right. Not long after this, Bhagavan opened his eyes. He moved his head and looked directly down at me, his eyes looking into mine. It would be impossible to describe this moment, and I am not going to attempt it. I can only say that at this second, I felt my inner being raised to a new level, as if suddenly my state of consciousness was lifted to a much higher degree. Perhaps in this split second, I was no longer my human self, but the self. Then Bhagavan smiled at me, and it seemed to me that I had never before known what a smile was. I said, "I have come a long way to see you." He said, "I knew you were coming, and I have been guiding your steps." There was a silence. I had stupidly brought a piece of paper on which I had written a number of questions I wanted to ask him. I fumbled for it in my pocket, but the questions were already answered by merely being in his presence. There was no need for questions or answers. Nevertheless, my dull intellect expressed one. "Tell me, whom shall I follow? What shall I follow?" I have been trying to find this out for years by seeking in religions, in philosophies, in teachers and teachings. I'll repeat that question. Tell me, whom shall I follow? What shall I follow? I have been trying to find this out for years by seeking in religions, in philosophies, in teachers and teachings. Again, there was silence. After a few minutes, which seemed to me a long time, he spoke. "You are not telling the truth. You are just using words, just talking. You know perfectly well whom to follow. Why do you need me to confirm it?" "You mean I should follow my inner self?" I asked. "I don't know anything about your inner self. You should follow the self. There is nothing or no one else to follow. Bhagavan says, I don't know anything about your inner self. You should follow the self. There is nothing or no one else to follow. I asked again, what about religions, teachers, gurus? If they can help in the quest of the self, yes, but can they help? Can religion, which teaches you to look outside yourself, which promises a heaven and a reward outside yourself, can this help you? It is only by diving deep into the spiritual heart that one can find the self. He placed his right hand on the right breast and continued. Here lies the heart, the dynamic spiritual heart. It is called Hridaya and is located on the right side of the chest and is clearly visible to the inner eye of an adept on the spiritual path. Through meditation, you can learn to find the self in the cave of this heart. It is a strange thing, but when I was very young, Ignacio Gulovga, who said to me, all great people function with the heart. He placed his hand over my physical heart and continued, see, here lies the heart. Always remember to think with it, to feel with it, and above all to judge with it. But the enlightened one raised the counsel to a higher level. He said, find the self in the real heart. Both just at the right moment in my life showed me the way. For the way she has used the capital letter. Both Ignacio Gulovga and Bhagavan, just at the right moment in my life, showed me the way. Bhagavan was not a philosopher and he did not set himself up as a teacher, master or guru. He made the same statement all through his life, that there is no use knowing anything else if one does not know the self. He made the same statement all through his life, that there is no use knowing anything if one does not know the self. He said, without knowing the self, of what avail is it to know anything else? And knowing the self, what else remains yet to know? All else but the self is ignorance. I'll read that again. That is part of the poem, the Atmavidya Sankirtanam. Without knowing the self, of what avail is it to know anything else? Tannai aridalindri pinnai edarigal yen. And knowing the self, what else remains yet to know? Tannai arindidil pin ennai uladariya. Those two sentences are reflected from that poem. All else but the self is ignorance. He pointed out a path of liberation through the practice of self-inquiry, and the questioner will arrive at an understanding that there is no I, because I am not my hands, I am not my feet, I am not my body, I am not my so-called personality or even my brain. I am certainly not my physical sum total, because when I am dead, where am I? Does some success flatter me? I must question, who is flattered? Am I sad? I ask the question, who is sad? By remembering that I am not the doer, it is possible to understand the illusion of the world. Bhagavan gave as an example a bank clerk who handles money daily, but without agitation, because he knows it is not his money. So too, it is not the real self that is affected by the changes of states or fortunes. People said to Bhagavan, I would like to find God. His answer was, find the self first, and then you won't have to worry about God. Once a man said to him, I don't know whether to be a Catholic or a Buddhist. Bhagavan asked him, what are you now? The man answered, I am a Catholic. Bhagavan then said, go home, be a good Catholic, and then you will know whether you should be a Buddhist or not. I'll read that again. People said to Bhagavan, I would like to find God. His answer was, find the self first, then you won't have to worry about God. And once a man said to him, I don't know whether to be a Catholic or a Buddhist. Bhagavan asked him, what are you now? The man answered, I am a Catholic. He then said, go home and be a good Catholic, and then you will know whether you should be a Buddhist or not. Bhagavan pointed out to me that the real self is timeless. But he said, in spite of ignorance, no man takes seriously the fact of death. He may see death around him, but he still does not believe that he will die. He believes, or rather feels in some strange way, that death is not for him. Only when the body is threatened does he fall a victim to the fear of death. Every man believes himself to be eternal, and this is actually the truth. The truth asserts itself in spite of man's ignorant belief that the body is the self. I asked Bhagavan how to pray for other people. He answered, if you are abiding within the self, there are no other people. You and I are the same. When I pray for you, I pray for myself. And when I pray for myself, I pray for you. Real prayer is to abide within the self. This is the meaning of Tat Tvam Asi, I am thou. There can be no separation in the self. There is no need for prayer for yourself or any person other than yourself to abide within the self. I asked Bhagavan, you say that I am to take up the search for the self by Atma Vichara, asking myself the question, who am I? May I ask you, who are you? I asked Bhagavan, you say that I am to take up the search for the self by Atma Vichara, asking myself the question, who am I? May I ask you, who are you? Bhagavan answered, when you know the self, the I, you, he, she disappear. They merge together in pure consciousness. You know not only yourself, you know not only what you are, but there is clarity as to what the Jnani, the Bhagavan is. That in the self there is no Veda Bhavana. That knowing which everything is known. That knowing which everything else is known. In that one act, all other acts stand fulfilled. In that one duty, Tannai Arindedil, Pin Ennai Muladariya, there is nothing else to know. Everything else stands known. The Satyanarayana Swami puja that you did, the Murugar you worshipped, the Venkatachalapati whose temple you went, all are known to be this Paramatman, to be this Atman, to be this self. In knowing that, everything else stands known. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the self-inquiry session conducted by Sri Dilip Simha.
Namo Ramana. Dhyayet Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tambraravindekshana Bhaktabhishtavarabhayapradakaram Kaupinamutrujvalam Swatmanandarasanubhutivivasham Sarvanavatyangakam Srimandam Shri Ramaneshwaram Guruvaram Yogasanadhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युताव पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्. We commence today's evening Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. I'm reading from the book Guru Vachaka Kovai in the chapter Meditation on the Truth. The subject which Bhagavan has blessed us is about delusion. Verse number 548. Only so long as a person thinks that he is aware of the non-self will the delusion, "Oh, I do not know my nature," exist. If this thought that he is aware of the non-self is removed through the knowledge that one's nature is eternally realized, that lamentation will cease, becoming essentially false. I repeat, only so long as a person thinks that he is aware of the non-self will the delusion, "Oh, I do not know my nature," exist. If this thought that he is aware of the non-self is removed through the knowledge that one's nature is eternally realized, that lamentation will cease, becoming essentially false. Bhagavan is saying here, by recognizing that one's nature, one is already the self, and one by abiding in the self repeatedly can essentially make this idea that is very strong, that I do not know the self, or I know all the non-self, I know the body, I know the world, I know the mind. All this which is appearing so strong to us can be removed or will become false if we get to know the self, that we are already the self. And by how do we get to know that we are already the self? Bhagavan has said that is only knowing the self is really being the self. It is not knowing it like any other objects that we know of the non-self. So therefore, Bhagavan has given us this Atma Vichara, this direct path to being the self, which is essentially knowing the self. And how do we be the self? All we need to do is those thoughts which take us away from this truth that we are the self, has to be let gone. And how do we do it? Bhagavan says, no matter how many thoughts rises within oneself, one should diligently inquire to whom is this thought. Whether the thoughts are good, bad, or ugly, spiritual, non-spiritual, whatever it may be, we should diligently inquire to whom is this thought. Then the answer will come that it is for me, not for anybody. That is the truth. That particular thought is for me alone. And thereupon we should inquire, who am I then? What do I refer to as I within me? Or where from this I thought rises within me? When we try to go to the source of that I, then we actually get in touch with the self with the grace of the Master. And by repeatedly getting in touch with our real nature, Bhagavan assures that the mind will gain enough strength to see the truth, to remain in the truth, and see everything else as false, as everything else as having no reality of its own, but a reality lent by my own attention to it. By repeated practice, mind gains enough strength to remain at this source. The immense grace of Bhagavan. For the next 10 minutes, let us get back to our real nature, the self which alone is, through Atma Vichara.
Namo Ramana. We go on to the sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande on Bhagavad Gita Sara, selections from Bhagavad Gita put together by Bhagavan Sri Ramanasramam.
Vasudeva Satam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasudrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmikantam Kamalananam Yogiradhyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavayaharam Sarvalokaikanaatham. By Bhagwan's grace, we are doing manana on Bhagavad Gita Sara. The last satsang we touched upon verse 25. Today we will touch upon the verse 26, which is the verse from chapter 5, verse number 26. May I request Sapna to kindly chant the verses, please?
Yes, sir. अतः श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता सारः कामक्रोधवियुक्तानां यतीनां यत्तचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां कामक्रोधवियुक्तानां यतीनां यत्तचेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनाम्.
Thank you, Sapna. In respect of those monks who are free from lust and anger and have subdued their mind, have realized their self, the ultimate beatitude called liberation is a fait accompli from all sides. Lust and anger are two greatest stumbling blocks against liberation. Anger is the gross manifestation of lust and desire. So we know of the various stumbling blocks that we have in spirituality that they call about kama, which is lust, krodha, which is anger, lobha, which is greed, mada, which is pride, moha, which is delusion, and matsarya, which is jealousy. So here Shri Krishna has talked about the two of them, which is the lust and anger. So anger is the gross manifestation of lust and desire. So we need to understand this, that we always say that something is manifesting, but why is it manifesting? There must be some root cause, there must be some reason because of which anger comes. Anger just does not come from the blue. There must be a reason. And in this shloka, they said lust is basically strong sexual desire, and desire of any other sort are the source. As a source of lust and anger is in the mind, it is only the monks who have subdued their mind by severe spiritual practice, sadhana, who will be able to control their passion and anger. When once it is done, it will be easy for them to attain liberation while alive, not to speak of freedom after death. When Bhagwan Ramana was asked to confirm whether we must rid ourselves of lust, kama, anger, krodha, etc., His reply was, give up thoughts. You need not give up anything else. You must be there to see anything. It is the self. Self is ever conscious. This is the talk number 41. Kama and Krodha must vanish before self-realization. So it is the veiling power. Because of the veiling power, you have the Kama and Krodha. And why does Kama and Krodha come up? Because there is an expectation within and there is something happening outside. Inside you were expecting something, but outside there's something totally different that's happening, because of which there is anger. Or somebody hurts your feelings. There's basically an imbalance between outer and inner. Like for example, if you go to the dining table and you get cold food and you're expecting hot food, what happens? Suddenly you get angry. Now the food is perfect. The only that you have an expectation of a hot food, but there's only cold food. So or you wanted to do self-inquiry today, 15 minutes, but at the end of the day you realize, oh, I couldn't do self-inquiry for 15 minutes, and again you get angry. So there could be so many reasons that you could get angry. So of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving towards salvation, one who is in Krishna consciousness is the best of all. In the Bhagavatam, it confirms this fact as follows. Just try to worship in devotional service Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. So what does this mean? In the conditioned soul, the desire to enjoy the results of work is so deep-rooted that it's very difficult to even for the great sages to control such desires. Despite great endeavors, a devotee of the Lord, constantly engaged in devotional service and Krishna consciousness, perfect in self-realization, very quickly attains liberation. To cite an analogous example of this, by vision, by meditation, and by touch only do the fish, the tortoise, and the birds maintain their offsprings. The fish brings up its offsprings simply by looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs of the tortoise are laid on the land, and the tortoise meditates on the eggs while in the water. Similarly, a devotee in Krishna consciousness, although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to that abode simply by thinking of him constantly, by engagement in Krishna consciousness. He does not feel the pangs of material miseries. This state of life is called Brahma Nirvana. We often harbor the misconception that external circumstances is a very important aspect, in at least in my sadhana. We often harbor the misconception that external circumstances are at fault for the lack of peace in our lives. And we hope for the day when the situation will become conducive to peace of mind. However, peace is not dependent upon the external situation. It is a product of purified senses, mind, and intellect. So this is a very important thing. If somebody says, oh, I am getting angry because somebody said so and so. No. Actually, the anger is within you because your senses are not purified. Your mind, intellect, and senses are not purified. That's why actually you're getting angry. whatever is there outside is actually in your mind. The world is just a projection of your mind. We really need to understand this very, very clearly. And this has to be practiced by doing Viveka and Vairagya at every point of our time. We really need to understand, why are we getting upset? Why are we getting angry? And you will suddenly realize everything is actually within us and nothing is outside us. The sannyasis, with their mind and thoughts turned inward, find the ocean of peace within, independent of external circumstances. So that's the point that was just brought out also. There is no other, because today all of us, we perceive as another because we see ourselves as this body, mind, ego complex, and we see so many body, mind, ego complexes all around. But more and more we go within and we understand who we really are. That's what Bhagwan also said, what Dilip was saying, and what Nandkumar also was saying, that it's important not to, don't worry about the world. You mind your own business. You see what is your aim in life. Your aim in life, you've been given the human birth to realize who we are. So we have to go individually within and understand who we are. Once we understand the truth of who we are, we'll understand the truth of the whole world. And the whole world is actually nothing but us. There is nothing else but us, because we are just a projection of us. So this is a very important thing. The sannyasis, with their mind and thoughts turned inwards, find the ocean of peace within, independent of external circumstances. I always quote this, and I love quoting this example, where Bhagwan, there were 2 world wars going on when Bhagwan was alive, and Bhagwan didn't do anything. He didn't wink an eyelid. He didn't talk about the world wars at all, because he knew that it's just a projection of the mind. And if he was and nobody even asked him, why is the world war going? Why don't you do something about it? The important thing, the greatest lesson that we need to know, even in the world today, if you see the news, it's all about the various outward circumstances that are going on. And we always get perturbed by it. But where is the flux happening? Actually, everything is happening within us. And then, so when these sannyasis who are turned within and are in the ocean of peace within, then the internal machinery in order, they experience the same peace everywhere and are liberated in this world itself. So the important thing, the important lesson for all of us in this verse is that we need to be in peace within. As we see peace within, the world is only peace. If we see Ashanti within, if we see turbulence within, we must really understand that the turbulence outside is nothing but the turbulence within. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Jai Shri Krishna.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, Doctor.
Next sharing is by Dr. Kalarani Rangaswamy. She is speaking to us about Devi Kalottaram Jnana Vichara Padalam.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Arunachalamena agame ninipavar agatte veraruppai Arunachalam. Namo Ramana to all. We are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnanachara Vichara given to us by Bhagavan. And in the last satsang, we enjoyed the greatness and compassion of Devi Parvati because of the karuna that she has towards the jivas. She requests Shiva to teach the most easy, direct path so that all jivas can follow that and realize the jnana, the truth. Anaivarukkume muktikkaga muktidane uru marga kachidanam. Is it possible for all jivas to attain mukti? If so, is it possible to see the way to attain mukti by all jivas? she asks on our behalf. In the next stanza, she requests Shiva, Anaya Paranyanam Acharame Nadum Yanakku. She says, I am very much keen and interested in knowing about the jnana and the achara. And of course, it is well known, you have great karuna for your devotees. Because of that compassion and karuna, O head of all devas, Parameshwara, please bless us with a way to attain mukti. Parvati Devi requests Shiva for our sake only. But even in requesting that, we can see her humbleness. She says, Hey Ishvara, you have great compassion towards your devotees. So please show them the path to realize the truth. We can see the same in Sita Devi when she was in Ashokavana and Ravana comes and troubles her. Sita Devi throws a small piece of grass in front of Ravana and says, Hey Ravana, I can destroy you with this small piece of grass. But if I do that, I will be disgracing the arrow which is in the hand of my Rama. Amba Ramayana beautifully says, Raman villukku izhukku ena vidutten, she says. Devi don't want to show her strength and power, but instead wants the world to witness the power of Rama. Likewise, here Parvati's compassion is very great. There is no doubt. But she, instead of revealing that, she says, O great one, you are very compassionate towards the devotees. And because of that karuna, please show them the direct path to attain moksha. Because since jivas are in the state of ajnana, they won't be able to find the proper way. Moreover, in this song, Parvati requests Shiva to teach the way for jnana and acharam also. Why acharam? Because that will purify the mind of the jivas. Achara will make the mind to concentrate on the self and helps in inquiring the self, which will put him in the right path to attain self-knowledge. Only because of this, Ambika requests Shiva to teach both the way to jnana and achara. Now Shiva speaks. Madara say, Hey Queen of all women, Yadinal Jnaniyargal Yaduvur Kalangamum Il. This sadhana, which is followed by jnanis without any flaw, he says. How can there be a flaw? Can there be a flaw in sadhana? Yes, it happens. A person may say, I completely surrender to you. I have surrendered everything to you, to Hey Ishvara. Okay. After 10 days, he says, I told you no, I am surrendering everything to you. Now, 10 days have passed and you have not yet taken any step to fulfill my desire. Is this surrender? Once there was a great saint who renounced everything. He was actually second only to the king in his wealth. But he renounced them all and was just laying in the middle of a field with his hand as a support to his head. Two ladies, they went by that side to fetch water. One of them said, see, people say this person has renounced everything, but he still needs a support for his head. The other lady said, no, don't say like that. He's a great sage. Patinatar, hearing this, took off his hand and was laying down without any support. While they returned back, they saw him again laying down, but now without any support for his head. See, he has taken his hands off. He's really a great saint. The other lady said, even now I say he's not a realized one. Oh God, how can you say it like this? Yes, it is true, because he still listened to the words of people who passed by him. So he still have a feeling that he has not renounced completely. These are all the flaws. That is why Shiva referred to jnanis who do their sadhana without any flaw. Yadinal jnaniyargal yaduvor kalangamum il. And who attains the great mukti, which cannot be explained in words, but can only be realized. I'll teach you today. Paramasivam says, Uma Devi, please listen to it attentively. நான் உனக்கு இன்று நன்கு உரைப்பன், so that all can attain jnana, and I will teach the way to attain jnana and achara. ஞான ஆச்சாரங்கள் யாவருமே ஞானம் உற. From this statement, we understand that jnana is the one which each and every one can attain. In fact, there is nothing to be attained. It is always there. It is ever present. Once a devotee asked Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi, hey Bhagavan, you have attained jnana. When will we all attain it? Bhagavan said, I cannot see any ajnani in front of me. Jnanam is very present in each one of us. Only thing that we have to do is to realize it. There is nothing new that is to be attained. Realization of that jnana is each one's birthright. No one can live without that, even for a moment. Manikavasar beautifully says, இமைப்பொழுதும் என் நெஞ்சில் நீங்காதான் தாழ்வாழ்க. It is just an illusion that we are away from that and we strive hard to attain mukti. For those troubled souls, Shiva explains the way to go back and realize the truth through Jnana Marga. Once Bhagavan gave Upadesa for a devotee who came from Andhra with great difficulty. The devotee asked Bhagavan, I have studied lot of spiritual books, but I could not find the way. Now, can you please direct me in which way I should go? Bhagavan said, you can take the same path from which you came. Vanda vadiye tirumbi po. The devotee got greatly disappointed. From such a great distance I have come here to get Upadesa. But Bhagavan says like this. He felt very bad. And after Bhagavan went inside, other devotees consoled him and said, why do you worry? The words uttered by Mahans are true. He asked you to find from where the I thought come from. Find the origin. That is why he said, go through the same path inside and find the source. That is his Upadesam. Tirumbi agandane dinamaga kangan theriyumendanayan Arunachala are his words in Ramanacentre. Likewise, Shiva taught the way to attain jnana, which is due to all. Say Bhagavan in Jnana Vichara Padalam. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We now have a sharing by Sri Ujjwal Jagadish on Ramanacentre, a composition of Ganapati Muni on Bhagavan Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the Ramanacentre, the verse 7, which has been set to Hamir Kalyani Raga. Ramanena sanathamidam bhuvanam. Ramanena sanathamidam bhuvanam. Paninayaka varnyagunauga vritha. Bhanitif priya satyahita bhanata. Bahumanavashadayata sukita vamanatater avidunavata. Adishesha stuti sabhalla gunagala mahimeyu ನುಡಿವನು ಪ್ರಿಯ ಸತ್ಯಹಿತವಚನವನು ಬಹುಮಾನಗಳಿಂದ ಸುಖದಿ ಹಿಗದವ ಅವಮಾನಗಳಿಂದ ಎದೆಗುಂದಿ ಕುಗ್ಗದವ. Ganapati Muni starts this verse saying that Ramana's glory is so vast that even the Adi Shesha with 1,000 mouths, even that cannot suffice singing the glory of Ramana. And in the next line, he goes and he says, but Ramana, he does not care about any bahumana, any praise, neither is he affected by blame. We have a dance ballet at Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, which is called the Mangala Ramana, Mirror, O Mirror, where it talks about the images that we are holding on to. We hold on to various images that we have to be good, we have to be noble, we have to be beautiful, we have to be this, we have to be that, we have to have the discrimination, and we have to have the spiritual power. All these are only the images that we are holding on to. And if one image breaks, we soon hold on to the other image of us. And Bhagavan Ramana reminds us, these are only images. Why should you decorate the mirror? Instead, is it not your responsibility to find out who you are? When you see the mirror may have some blemishes, and the image that you see may be distorted. Or maybe the image can make it more beautiful also. But is it not our responsibility to know, is this the truth? Is this image true? This image comes and goes. What is that which always stays? Is it not our responsibility to find out that image, that truth of this image, the source of the image, the real subject which is reflected? And the story unfolds saying that there's a protagonist who has won an award, a bahumana, and she has won the award of being the most precious woman in the earth for having all the qualities. And when she's rejoicing her bahumana, she's rejoicing happily. At that time, these qualities in her manifest to teach her a lesson. And what are these qualities? The beauty comes and it says, oh, you are rejoicing that the award is given to you. The award does not belong to you, it belongs to me, says the beauty. And soon comes the health and it says, I am the well-being, I am the health. If I am not there, where is beauty? If I am not there, how can you work? So the award belongs to me, says the health. In the same way, the goodness comes. In the same way, the learning comes. In the same way, the discrimination comes. And in the end comes the spiritual power. And that too says, this award belongs to us and it does not belong to you. And when the protagonist is not ready to share her award with any of these qualities, they all threaten that we are going to leave you and go away. And the protagonist is really shaken and she says, I don't want you to go away. If I lose all these qualities, the images, these beautiful images of myself, then how will I live? Is there anyone who can live without all these things which I hold on as dear to me? And these qualities which have risen and manifested by the grace of Sadguru, they take the protagonist back in time and they take to the presence of Ramana. Ramana, when he was staying in the Patal Lingam, his body was covered with grime and his nails was long and curled, his hair was matted. Yet the devotees who were drawn to him, they saw beauty in him. They felt he was the most beautiful one in the world. Where does this beauty arises? The qualities as the protagonist. And they say that the urchin boys, they are throwing stones at this young sage and they're calling him, oh, mad man, crazy man. They're calling out names. And later they take the protagonist to the scene where Ganapati Muni, who has done a lot of japa and understood the essence of the scriptures, when he came and surrendered to Bhagavan Ramana, getting the first spoken Upadesha from Ramana, he realizes that he is no ordinary human being. He is the divine himself, Bhagavan, and he is the dear one who is the embodiment of the self, which is dear to all, and he is the seer of seer. And he named him Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. And the acclaim says, oh, protagonist, did you see what happened? Bhagavan, knowing fully that the name is only an epithet, it is only an adjective which is given to him. He was not touched when the urchin boys called him a crazy man or madman. Neither he was elated when Ganapati Muni called him Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. But out understanding this completely out of compassion, he accepted this sweet name, Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. And when he was in Guru Murtam, when the attendants wanted to do puja to him, then he wrote in the charcoal saying that iduve podum, showing the food. For this body, this food is enough. That is enough puja. You don't have to do extra puja with flowers and udbatti and other things, said Bhagavan at that time. And later at Ramanasramam, when there was robbery and the robbers hit Bhagavan Ramana on the leg, he told, Swami got the right puja. He said, commenting about the act that had happened at the Ramanasramam, he was untouched by either praise or blame. He was untouched with anything. And how is this possible? Because Ramana had completely understood that the self is untouched by blame or praise. Sadhu Swami says in his Tiruvannamalai, எத்தனைதான் கல்வியெல்லாம் இங்கே நீ கற்றாலும் எத்தனையோ செல்வம் நீ எய்திடினும் எத்தனைதான் கல்வியெல்லாம் இங்கே நீ கற்றாலும் எத்தனையோ செல்வம் நீ எய்திடினும் கேழ்வனுடன் புத்திரரும் ஏவல் புரிமோரும் சூழ புத்திரரும் ஏவல் புரிமோரும் சூழ மிக சித்திரமாய் தோன்றும் எளி தேகம் இருந்தாலும் வித்தகையின் இவ்வுலகுன் மேன்மை புகழ்ந்தாலும் வித்தகையின் என்றின் உலகுன் மேன்மை புகழ்ந்தாலும் அத்தன் ரமணன் அத்தனையும் சொப்பனமே. Sadhu says, even if you have learned everything that has to be learned, even if you have lot of wealth, even if you are surrounded with the best of people, even if you have a beautiful form, just like a picture, and even if the whole world says you are the greatest one, you are such a noble one, if even the whole world praises you, understand it is only a dream. When you wake up from the dream, you realize, why was I worried about my blames? And why was I so elated by the praise that I got? Everything. Attanayum sappaname yamaru iyamanurum shuddha paramanma swarupa shuddha paramanma swarupa viluparulum attan ramanan adike அன்பாவாய் எம்பாவாய் அன்பாவாய் எம்பாவாய். Understand that the Ramana who shines as the Shuddha Paramatma Swarupa, that alone is real. Everything else is only a swapna. So don't be worried about the praise and blame. Turn towards that Atma Swarupa Ramana and surrender to him and bathe in him, says Sadhu Swami. And Ramana has come to our lives to get back to that self which is unaffected by bahumana or avamana. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the abundant grace of that self shining within every one of us, we are blessed to meditate on the 108 names on Bhagavan, the litany composed by Vishwanatha Swami. It is called the Ramana Ashtottara Shatanamavali, or the Ashtottara Slokam, and we are on the name. We had meditated upon the name Jagat Hitaavataraya Namaha, one who was born for the welfare of the world. Recently, Dr. Venugopal Rao, we had the opportunity to hear him, and he was saying that there is an avatara, there have to be 3 factors. Of course, there is a time and a place, and there is a cause, a reason for the avatara. Why did the Supreme come down amidst us? So the cause is what Vishwanatha Swami has told us so far throughout the first 7 namas. Mahasena Mahomshena Jataha Sri Ramana Gurahu Akhanda Samvidakaro Mahauja Karanodbhavaha. He says he was born with a purpose, and then he tells us that what is the purpose? The purpose is Jagat Hitavataraha. It is for the welfare of the entire universe. The self itself is most auspicious for the entire universe. There cannot be anything more auspicious than the self. And we just heard Ujjwal Jagdish also meditating upon the fact that the self is Mangala. It alone is auspicious. It includes everything that is good. There is nothing good apart from the self. Actually, there is nothing apart from the self. But in that sense, good and bad are both included in the self, one may say. However, the self is purely Mangala, because the division of good and bad does not exist in the self. There is no such division in the self. The division is a mental division. So there is only pure goodness. It is only goodness. Now, why should that self become manifest? Bhagavan, we have seen, gave us the example of a tame deer being used to decoy a wild deer. So when we see the human form, we are able to relate to that form, and we are able to say, oh, this person is just like me. Therefore, it is possible for me to be just like him. What is the purpose of being with a Jivan Mukta? When one is with a Jivan Mukta, one can see from his life, from his behavior, it becomes very, very clear that he is not the body. And this becomes clear. When we were young, we had the opportunity of being for some time in the presence of Muruganar Swami, Vishwanatha Swami, Kunju Swami, Tiruvannamalai Shastrigal, and so many other devotees of Bhagavan. And at that time, I received the advice that when you are with Muruganar Swami, you may think you are feeling bored. We were young, you see, about 10, 12 years old. And what would we do in Muruganar Swami's presence? In first 2 instances, my mother would sing some songs on Bhagavan, and while she was singing, every time if some song on Bhagavan would be sung, tears would pour forth from Muruganar's eyes, And we could see that his body was melting. This I am saying now, that I could see his body was melting. I could see that he was completely lost in that song, and it was filling him with great joy beyond expression, and therefore the body was expressing by itself with tears flowing from his eyes and his hair standing on end. And his body, it's a melting, like that, melting, it would melt. So, but that was not evident to us at that point of time. For us at that point of time, there was somebody who our parents have said he's a great person. So we are there, and there is my mother singing and my father is sitting there with lot of reverence. So this may not be interesting to a young child. So I was given the advice, don't think it is boring. When you are getting an opportunity to be with Muruganar Swami or with Vishwanatha Swami, where my father might have put some questions about self-inquiry, Bhagwan's teachings would be discussed and we may not understand. So don't think it is boring, just to be there. What is the greatest benefit that you can get without your realizing? You will understand how a person abiding in the self is not at all connected with the body, is not at all concerned about the body. So now, after so many years, when we look back, we can recognize, yes, those great ones were abiding in the self, and therefore they did not have any concern with the body. They would behave in a normal manner, very affectionate. Vishwanatha Swami would in fact joke with us. He would call us some simple nicknames because my father insisted on offering him some Horlicks to drink. And he would say, I am going to call you Horlicks Natarajan. Some simple things like that. But you know, the overall presence, the overall abidance in the self, it seeped into those around. Therefore, what happens when we see Bhagavan, when we see somebody who is abiding in the self like Bhagavan, when we read his life story and we say, on this earth, this has happened, so close to our times it has happened, and that person, within quotes, that Bhagavan says, it is possible for you, it is possible for you. And he says, he gives that state by his look, he gives that state by his, just by being there to so many people around him, and he continues to do that. If we look at his eyes, we need to look at his eyes, we need to think of a form. So he comes in a form, Jagat Hitavataraha. And where is he born? He has to be born in a place. He chooses a place, a very special place. That place is called Tiruchuri or Bhuminatha Kshetram, it is called. It is the Lord of Tiruchuri is Bhuminatha. Tiruchuri means the sacred whirlpool, the sacred whirl. Tiru in Tamil is equivalent to Shri, means it is auspicious. It means it is Mangala. It is everything that is auspicious. And this whirl, the sacred whirl, can a whirlpool be sacred? Normally, a whirlpool is something frightening because people can get caught in the churi. And there is one churi which is very frightening for all of us, which is, it is called the Karachuri. It is called the cycle of birth upon birth upon birth. Annaiva etrenil, in mother's womb, ini pirava varam, give me that. Yendra tarivai, when will you give me that boon? it's asked by Guhai Namah Shivaya, he asks Arunachala, when will you give me that boon of not being born in a mother's womb? All great ones say it is very difficult. போதும் போதும் இந்த புழுமலர் பிறவிய அன்னை கருவாட்டம் எனது திண்டாட்டம். Enough, I cannot anymore be born in that womb. It is called a karichuri. So that which negates, there is, you see, to negate one force, there has to be an equal force. To remove a thorn, it is said we use another thorn, or we use a pin which is equivalent to a thorn. It is a sharp object. A sharp object has gotten into our foot, another sharp object is used to remove it. So a churi has to be countered by a greater, a more powerful churi. So to counter the karichuri, the Tiruchuri has emerged, and Bhagavan was born in that Tiruchuri. In that Tiruchuri, which has a sacred lore to it. And it is the place of Bhuminatha. But what does Bhagavan say about Tiruchuri? அன்புடையார் தம்மகம் மகலாமலனவரதம் இன்புடையாட்டம் மீடல் எனவென்றும் எழிற்சுழியல். What is this beautiful churiyal place? Anbudayartam aham. In the heart of those with love. Ahalamal anavaradam. He never moves away. Never moves away. Ever he is in the hearts of those who have love. And what is he doing there? Inbudai attam midal. He is dancing the dance of bliss. In Ashtakam, Bhagavan says, you dance the dance of stillness in the heart space. So that dance, Bhagavan says, that same dance, which is the dance of stillness of Arunachala, is the dance of bliss of Tiruchuri, Enavendrum Tiruchuriyal. And so this is the place, this is the heart of bliss where Bhagavan is born. He is born meaning that he becomes manifest. The self which is unmanifest, which in that sense does not reveal itself, reveals itself when one does Atma Vichara. It reveals itself as I, says Bhagavan, as Aham iti Sakshat. And that dance, that revelation is the birth of Bhagavan. That is his grace, and that is all auspiciousness. He catches us in that whirl of grace, that Tiruchuri, to erase all our karma which leads to birth and death. Keriya mandaye kirum ayan எழுத்து அழிபடும் திறனாயும் அறிஞர்க்கு செழிய வேங்கட செல்வ பிரானடி வழிபடல் விட்டு மார்க்கம் ஒன்றில்லையே. Catch hold of his feet. Catch hold of his feet, says Muruganatha Swami. And that is the path. There is no other way, because he will wipe away all the past. He will wipe away all the churis. He will just still all the whirlpools by engulfing them in his whirl of grace, the dance of bliss, which Bhagavan says is Tiruchuri. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We continue the satsang with the chanting of Arunachala Aksharamanamala verses by Radha and Vallabh.
Arunachala शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल முட்டையடித்தனை வெட்ட வெளியில் நீ நடமாடின என் அருணாச்சலா மோகம் தவிர்த்தும் உன் மோகம் வைத்தும் என் மோகம் தீராயே அருணாச்சலா மௌனிய கற்போல் மலராதிருந்தால் மௌனமிதாமோ அருணாச்சலா எவனின் வாயின் மண்ணினையட்டி என் பிழை பொழித்த அருணாச்சலா யாரும் அறியாதென் மதியினை மருட்டி எவர் கொள்ளை கொண்ட அருணாச்சலா ரமணான் என்று உரைத்தேன் ரோஷம் கொள்ளாதென்னை ரமித்திட செய்யவா அருணாச்சலா ராப்பகலில்லா வெறுவெளி வீட்டில் ரமித்திடுவோம் அருணாச்சலா லட்சியம் வைத்தருள் அஸ்திரம் விட்டென்னை பக்ஷித்த பிராடனோடு அருணாச்சலா லாபனீக பர லாபமில் என்னையுற்று லாபம் என்றுற்றனை அருணாச்சலா வரும்படி சொல்லில்லை வந்தென் படியள வருந்திடும் தலை விதி அருணாச்சலா வாழ்வென்றாகம் புக்கும் வாழ்வருளன்று என் வாழ்விழுந்தேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா விட்டிடு கஷ்டமா விட்டிடாதுனை உயிர் விட்டிட அருள் புரி அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமண மாலை வாழி.
Namo Ramana. We conclude the satsang with Ashtotra Puja to Bhagavan, offered at Subramaniam's altar, and it will be chanted by Vaibhavji and Prarthana, the first part, and the second part by Uma and Ashwini. The Aarti song would be rendered by Revathi Shankar.
Namo Ramana. Bharatvaja Vishwanatha Virasitam Sri Ramana Sottara Shatanamavalihi Apara Satchit Sukhavari Rashe Yasyomi Matram Bhuvanam Samastam Guhahitam Tam Ramanam Gabhiram Chinta Vihinam Chintayami Om Mahasena Mahom Shena Jataya Namaha Om Sri Ramanaya Namaha Om Gurave Namaha Om Akhanda Samvidakaraya Namaha Om Mahaujase Namaha Om Karanodbhavaya Namaha Om Jagatitavataya Namaha Om Sri Bhumikatasthalosthitaya Namaha Om Parasharakulottamsaya Namaha Om Sundaravya Namaha Om Kamaniya Sucharitraya Namaha Om Sahayamba Sahayavate Namaha Om Shonachala Manasaya Namaha Om Swarnahastakaya Namaha Om Sri Madhvana Shanta Mahasaya Lapta Vidyodaya Namaha ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुगौरिणा पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशत षोडशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूणिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजितशलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईद्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्छिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अभिच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगभिषग्वराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवतमाय नमः ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्य दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संघिये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
नमो रमण नमो रमण